Today on the Big 3 in 30, Duke sues former quarterback Darian Mensah over his transfer.
What a story, what a day, what a moment we found ourselves in sports.
Georgia Tech gets the Heisman winner's brother out of the portal.
Alberto Mendoza just won a national championship and is now going to be amongst the mix for the Yellow Jackets in 2026.
And on the hardwood, UCLA takes down number 4 Purdue.
The Bruins somehow get the job done.
This is the Big 3 in 30 NBA. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 NBA starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Quarterback Darian Mensah wants to transfer from Duke, but the Blue Devils have decided to take things to court. It's a complicated situation, and JJ Jackson tells us more about it.
What a story, what a day, what a moment we found ourselves in sports, Michael. Thank you for taking the time to be with me on the show.
You got it, JJ. Yeah, this is a potentially game-changing lawsuit, not obviously for Duke and Mensah, but more broadly for college sports, because it's about this new world we're in where colleges can directly pay athletes for NIL. And will this be the start of instances where Mensah's a college student at the end of the day? I mean, we think of him as a quarterback, but he is a college student, and typically students can transfer to schools that admit them. So this is an interesting case where he signed a contract. It's tough to say he can't transfer. The question is going to become, can he both play and sign a separate NIL deal with the new school? Obviously, there are reports that it's Miami, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's been so many football storylines to follow with this, but the bigger picture here is, I mean, it's the money and the business that's involved here. You go a couple of weeks ago when Mensah makes the decision that he's coming back to Duke. He self-produces this hype tape video that he's going to be playing quarterback for the Blue Devils next season. And then you see what Miami goes through, kind of looking for their next quarterback, and they're kind of rumored to be the next landing spot. And at the last minute, the last possible day to put your name into the transfer portal, Mensah decides to make that decision. Looking at this now, though, Duke making the decision to sue Darian Mensah. I think a lot of people were pushing for this from the fan perspective, obviously. And it seems like this is the right play for Duke to, change what could possibly be the future of sports, like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, Duke has the contract, right? So they believe that, he signed the contract and it ends at the end of this year, 2026. So they believe they have a legal right.
One more season, yeah.
And in a normal world in pro sports, they would easily win. It's this twist of college sports where NIL appears to be functioning more like employment, right? That it's a retention. It's a device for retention, that if you sign a multi-year contract with an employer, you can't leave them. But neither Duke nor any other college wants to describe the players as employees. So they have this sort of fiction, right? It's this fiction that NIL kind of links an athlete to a school. And it will be interesting to see how it plays out, because his ability to transfer can't be stopped. He can transfer he's a student. So the question is going to become, if he transfers, can he be paid or will he owe Duke money? I mean, most likely this probably gets resolved in a settlement, but Duke is doing something that clearly other schools are happy to see, because they want to see this case brought.
What does it take for him to reach that employment? I get what you're saying, and that's obviously what a lot of people want to talk about. Is it another kind of federal ruling that takes place? This is where, I'm naive in the matter, coming to you as the legal expert here, but how do we fix this in college sports to where they are viewed as employees? Is that right? Is that the right answer?
Well, colleges don't like that answer, because they don't want more employees, because that would mean that they're owed potentially health care, they're owed if there are any retirement benefits, and many universities have that for employees. So the challenge for schools is that they worry about the cost implications. And then moreover, there's the NCAA, which has sort of this fidelity to amateurism that the athletes are students who play a sport. They've pivoted a bit from that with the House settlement to have direct payments, but the reality is that to recognize them as employees would require several ways, none of which have happened yet. But one would be successful litigation. There's Johnson versus NCAA, which is a case in Pennsylvania, arguing that the athletes are employees under the FLSA. That's a federal law that guarantees minimum wage. So there, the athletes would be student workers, so that just like work-study students, they would be paid along those lines. Other matters, there was Dartmouth, more my neck of the woods, Dartmouth College. The men's basketball players formed a union, and we're progressing to be recognized as employees under the NLRA, which is a separate federal law that provides the potential for unionizing. So we could see it happen at a state university, which is not governed by the NLRA. It would be governed by state law. But what I think this case is going to lead to will be lawyers who are pushing for employment recognition to say, hey, what's going on with Duke and Mensah and Miami? They're really just talking about him going to play football at one school or another. This is not about being a student. This is about playing football. And we can sort of say it's about being a student, but fundamentally it's about football.
Yeah, and the sooner we accept that, I think the better off we'll be. And that's obviously, yeah, go ahead.
And this case doesn't have to happen in that world, right? Because if he's an employee and he signs a multi-year employment contract to play at Duke, he doesn't leave. He can't leave. So it's this world where NIL is functioning as an employment device that it leads to uncertainty.
Clearly, a lot of people that watch this will be in the pro Duke camp and that sort of thing. And that's where I think, they went through such a long process last year, even putting together a contract like this, and had so many of their own kind of legal experts putting in thought as to what it would look like and that sort of thing to hopefully not end up here. And yet here we are.
Yeah, and they include an arbitration provision. So the parties were thinking, if there is a dispute, let's have this go to arbitration so that it's not conducted in public. Instead, I think Duke sensed that he was going to leave. He enters the portal. They want an injunction to block him from doing that. Now, from what I understand, I know this may not be broadcast immediately, so we'll see what the facts are when this is broadcast. My understanding is the judges ruled he can enter the portal, but that doesn't mean he can necessarily play football in another school or, more importantly, sign an NIL deal. That's going to be the sticking point, right? If he goes to Miami, can he sign for more money in Miami? Duke is saying, no, you can't because you've agreed to this Duke contract. In a normal world, this gets resolved through a financial agreement that he would pay damages to Duke. And maybe that's ultimately what happens.
I'm certainly going to be following along to see kind of what the next moves are for both of these parties, Darian Mensah and Duke. And unfortunately, we're in this position because, again, from the football side of things, this is a quarterback who brought you your first ACC championship since the 80s. He's setting school records at the position. You're hoping one day he'll be representing Duke in the NFL, and Miami comes calling. And in a world where you can kind of just look for better opportunities, one came along for Mensah, and, he should be pursuing the larger payout and that sort of thing. It's just like you said, the legality of Duke wanting to push his contract.
Yeah, and some say, well, can't they agree to not poach or something like that? I mean, yeah, and that will lead to an antitrust lawsuit because then it will be competing schools joining hands to restrain the labor market. And this is where if they were employees and they could unionize, all of these antitrust issues go away, just like in the NFL. Right, there's free agency. There's rules about free agency. There's franchise tags, things like that. It's all allowable because there's a union that collectively bargains, and so the fruits of that bargaining are exempt from antitrust scrutiny. But colleges don't want. Colleges want to sort of come up with rules on their own, and they get into antitrust trouble, as we've seen over the last 15 years.
The NFL playoffs are rolling along, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers every reason to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. Georgia Tech football landed a quarterback out of the transfer portal with a national title and Heisman-winning DNA. Indiana's Alberto Mendoza made the move to the Yellow Jackets, and Locked On Georgia Tech host Caleb Johnson has more on the show.
Jarvis, kind of want to talk about who he is. I didn't know if he would be coming, which is a transfer portal quarterback deciding to come to Georgia Tech, as we now learned earlier today that Alberto Mendoza just won a national championship and is now going to be amongst the mix for the Yellow Jackets in 2026. Jarvis, let me ask you in this way. Do you feel like this is a big get for Georgia Tech?
From, if you look at where the school is coming from, if you look at who his brother is, just from a national brand piece, because they've done stories on those guys, talked about how Alberto supports his brother, all the time. You see him tweeting about his brother and, giving him all type of praises and everything. So those guys are super close. But when you kind of take away the last name, I say it's a get from a standpoint of really building up that competition, because I said that's the only way you're going to make that jump that Brent Key always talks about. Like, he's talked about, or had on his side of his hat. Like, hey, you talking about making a jump, bring guys in so guys can compete. So guys won't get stagnant or guys won't get comfortable. Hey, I'm going into the season with being a starter. I'm good to go. Nah, we don't want none of that. Like, I think that Brent Key was very honest with Mendoza, saying like, hey, man, I think that you have a certain skill set that we're used to watching, and I'm not going to compare him to, who. I'm not going to even say his name, because I don't want anybody to get anything misconstrued about what I'm about to say. Mendoza is an athletic quarterback. He actually played the wide receiver position before he moved to quarterback, because he said he wanted to be better than his brother. And, that's coming from the high school coach's mouth. So, hey, that is a direct quote. So I think that when you look at some of the things that he brings to the table and you understand where he's coming from, so he understands what it takes to win the big ones. He didn't play in most of them, but he was in that culture. He understands what Signetti was doing, and he understands what his big bro was doing. So I feel like when you look at the type of guy that you're getting and taking away that last name, I feel like it is a solid get. I say a solid get. I can't say big.
Yeah, I will say it's a big get from this aspect of, you kind of mentioned it there towards the beginning, of the coverage that his family has received, the attention that gets brought when you have now the last name Mendoza. Clearly, Fernando was the attention getter, Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, all of those sorts of things. Offensive player of the game, like all of the accolades came with Fernando because he was the starting quarterback. He was the guy leading the way. However, what do you know about what's going to happen in 2026 now that the other Mendoza brother, that I'm sure he will want phrased in a different way, but what that will bring to Georgia Tech, which is eyeballs. And you know what eyeballs gets? Attention. And you know what attention brings? Recruits, player, talent, people who want to be associated with the program, because there's going to be an additional layer of attention around the program. And so just from that aspect alone, I think it's a beneficial thing, because you'll have the college game days wanting to check in on how Alberto Mendoza is doing. Whether he's a starter or not, and we're going to have that conversation later in the show, but there's going to be a check-in on that strictly because of his name, because of his family's name. And you also know that there is an element of well-rounded individual that's coming in. Like the way that Mendoza family raised their kids
Sure.
is absolutely incredible. And
Admirable.
like that element coming onto campus
Mhm.
and being infectious in the locker room in a really, positive way can only be a good thing for this program. And I'll add this one last thing, Jarvis, is that it's always nice when you hear someone else in the conference was interested in a player and went after said player. And that is apparently what happened with Duke. And so to see someone else in the conference interested in him, go after him, but you ultimately end up with him, I feel like for that element, this is a big get for Tech.
Yeah, man, I'm with you on that, because here's the thing. I look at where this conference is, and we've had conversations, off air and on this show as well, about what James Franklin can potentially do for the branding purposes of this conference. Like, he is a brand. He was one of those names in the Big Ten when he was the head coach at Penn State. And when you are bringing guys from that particular conference, and you talk about the whole Duke aspect of it, because we know they're willing to pay and they're trying to get some of their money back, and they're trying to, strong arm some people to stick around.
Do they want a refund, or do
they want a refund? They want them to stick around. They want, you're like, hey man, you ain't going nowhere. They got the gun out, they got the pistol out and everything, man. You ain't going nowhere, dog. Like, you got our money. We want some yardage. We want some more yardage. You got a 2-year deal, sir. We need you to come back. So I bring that up to say, like, when you look at where this conference is headed, Miami making a run. We talk about how Tech can, potentially make represent the conference in the conference championship, but potentially go to the playoffs, and how the steps they need to take to get there. I feel like there's a lot of good things going on in this conference. And I think that when you bring in a guy like Mendoza and you exercise your patience, right, and wait for a guy like that to bring into the fold, it lets me know that Key understands where this thing is potentially headed as well.
The NFL playoffs are rolling along, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers every reason to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback, play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 College. The UCLA Bruins hosted Purdue last night and took down the number 4 Boilermakers, and Coach Mick Cronin went after the Big Ten in the post-game presser too. That gives Locked On UCLA host Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer plenty to discuss.
The Bruins somehow get the job done over number 4 Purdue. In what was a near sellout, they gave out thousands of John Wooden bobbleheads. The Bruins pull off the upset, getting number 4 Purdue their second loss of the year. The Bruins, who entering the day were on the wrong side of the bubble. Joe Lunardi had updated something on ESPN saying the Bruins are on the bubble, tweeted out on his own social media page that UCLA's not even in the tournament. Their next 4 out. They're the back 8 looking on the wrong side in. Well, UCLA's got a win that nobody else does. I know those NorCal schools have been close to getting big wins. I know USC was close to getting big wins. No, UCLA came back after getting some tough travel schedule. Going to the Midwest, going back west to play Maryland. Going east, looking bad against Ohio State. Coming west, still with some Sky Clark injuries. A UCLA team that got zero production from the bench. And you know what? Despite playing a team that was traveling but had more rest being out west, Purdue, despite a rough game against USC, won that The Bruins played a Mick Cronin-like game. This felt eerily similar to how UCLA played against Arizona. The Bruins were kind of back and forth early against the Wildcats, played well, and it felt like, oh, they're up 5. They had that chance to break away. Couldn't. Purdue went up 6 with about 2 minutes left, a minute and a half left. You're like, dude, this feels exactly like the Arizona game, right? There was one chance where Cronin put in Jamerson for Booker. Jamerson got a big rebound, and then he committed a foul. What was the big sequence, I thought, was when Jacobson for Purdue had a big rebound, had a putback. I think it was Jacobson or it was Clough. I don't exactly remember who it was. He got fouled on a putback, missed the free throw. Purdue got the rebound, and then Smith hit a bucket to go up 4. UCLA responded with the 3, only for Purdue to go up 4. Well, no, it was the Donovan Dent legacy game. The guy who we've been lamenting, the guy who's been waiting for the moment. Donovan Dent, when he needed to do it the most, came out and said, all right, I'm going to put this team on my freaking back. 3 blocks. He had a steal, 13 assists. I don't know what the percentage of points that Donovan Dent assisted on or helped for UCLA in this game of 69 points, but he scored 23 of them. And then if you mix in what he assisted, more than 50 to 60 or 70% of the points tonight for UCLA. In a game where there weren't many free throws, 10 combined free throws, UCLA took care of the basketball. They blocked more shots than Purdue, and Purdue has bigger size than the Bruins, all right? They don't have excellent size. When you're looking at Booker's sometimes timidness, you're looking at Jamerson off the bench. It was the Dent legacy game. You're talking about the best point guard in the Big Ten. Yes, I know he's banged up. UCLA did this without Sky Clark, who's been their most consistent guard all year long, shooting the 3, scoring off the dribble, defensively, doing it all. And despite all that, you're like, man, UCLA's down 12 before the half. We're like, same old Bruins, down 27-15 in the first half. And oh, by the way, you know what was the biggest shot? That weird clanked, bricked shot that went in for Dent at the buzzer the first half off the back iron and dropped. And then when UCLA was down 6, you know what? Dent came in. He knew UCLA needed a bucket. He's been afraid to shoot threes all year long. He came up, stepped up, and drilled one in the face of the Purdue defender when Purdue was about to pull it away. Then the Bruins got a big steal, led to a bucket, got another stop, led to UCLA having that final possession, despite a couple of timeouts and the take foul that I think was so horribly given by Purdue. I think that was horribly executed by Matt Pater's team. Horribly so. With that take foul with like 20 seconds. Like, I don't really understand what was the point of that. Only for UCLA to get a double on Dent, kick out to Bilodeau, who's probably the one guy you don't want to leave open if you're Purdue. And Bilodeau got red hot in that second half, hit 4 threes. Basically, all his scoring was from the 3-point line and a gamer. This felt big like the Wisconsin win last year, but played out similar to the Michigan State game where the Bruins got that late bucket to get the job done. And you know when UCLA was successful last year? This time last year, they had a 7-game stint on the West Coast. That's exactly what UCLA has in this one now. They came back from a weird East Coast trip where they survived for the most part. They have a better winning record overall and in Big Ten play to this point. Now they're on the West Coast for a long time. It took a Tuesday night home win. I believe it was a Tuesday night home win for UCLA that changed the season. A shocking one against Wisconsin. You know what UCLA did in this one? A Tuesday night home win that kind of got the crowd back into it. That's the vibes Pauley Pavilion should be rocking all Big Ten season long. And now you're going to start playing teams, if you're UCLA, that are beatable on your schedule. Because UCLA has now played the number 1 team in the country, a top 10 Gonzaga team, a top 4 Purdue team. You mix in Wisconsin, who went and beat a number 2 Michigan team. What are they afraid of? What are they afraid of now? The Bruins host Northwestern. They're playing an Oregon team that's beat up on the road. You're hosting an Indiana on the bubble, hosting Rutgers, hosting Washington before you go play Michigan. You're telling me those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, right? Your 6-game West Coast stretch, that is enough for UCLA at this point to get close to 20 wins. They can execute that. And all of a sudden you go from next 4 out to borderline 9 seed in a day. I'm not sure how many rungs this is going to jump up the Bruins, let alone affect the net ranking. I don't have that in front of me. It's game changing. Now UCLA, the worst thing is we have to watch them. They lose this game, they lose it bad, you can write them off. They win this game, and the way they did it, the comeback, the game that they needed their swagger back. UCLA hasn't had their swagger this year. They had a little swagger against Arizona. It seemed like they were timid and had limited swagger versus Zaga. And now the Bruins are like, wait a minute, we got some swagger. You go beat Northwestern, you avoid the letdown in the next couple weeks heading into the middle of February when you play Michigan and Michigan State. You still got, what, a top 11 Illinois team later. You got USC who's hyped, Nebraska who's big time. There are opportunities for UCLA at home and on the West Coast to build a resume that is now wide open, looking for stamps to punch their ticket into the NCAA tournament. That is wide open once again. UCLA did this without their best three-point shooter. They did it without Sky Clark. I know Purdue had longer travel, but they still have been here longer than the Bruins. They were here playing USC on a Saturday night, and UCLA was flying back from Columbus after a week out east. Like, this is stunning. And the fact they're down 6 with a minute and a half to play? Like, what are we talking about here? Let's go over the rest of this stuff. Xavier Booker, I said in my podcast with Nick Arvin, we needed to see something from him. I was sitting there getting ready to come on this podcast that UCLA desperately was going to lament Mick Cronin's fractured relationship with the Daimara. Because you can tell how much that Donovan Dent needs a good big. Why? Because if he's crashed into the hole, the bigs have to respect the lob threat to a big. That would be Mata. Or this could be Booker. But he's still afraid to get that jam. And Jamerson doesn't earn enough minutes. And Brandon Williams just isn't that guy that pairs well with Donovan Dent as the 5. So now you look at what could have been fractured. Instead, Dent was productive, hit a 3. He had 3 blocks, 4 boards. Cronin desperately wanted to take Booker out in the wrong moment, but Jamerson committed a foul. Booker, after a 2-minute start, played 35 minutes and survived, and I think is slowly building confidence. Bilodeau put out there his 3-point stroke. Yeah, it wasn't his best scoring night, but when it came to the Purdue bigs, he scrapped all night long and drilled threes just about every big moment of the game. UCLA needed to go up 4, hit it. When UCLA's down 4, hit it. For the win, hit it. Yelled a big time, bang, bang, bang. You look at Trent Perry. Perry with a huge steal, easy assist to Daly when UCLA was down 3, cut it to 1. He had an 11-point night. He hit 3 threes. And UCLA in this game shot more efficiently from 3, made more threes, and that's the difference between previous Mick Cronin teams. This Bruins team is better at 3-point shooting. And while that's Purdue's somewhat bread and butter outside of feeding the bigs, UCLA was able to get 3-point shots from a team that was missing their best 3-point shooter. We didn't see a lot of Jamerson. There was non-existence from Jamar Brown and Brandon Williams. If you told me we had 8 minutes from Eric Freeney, 8 minutes from Eric Freeney as your longest tenured reserve coming off the bench, and you're telling me UCLA won that game? Are you serious? Are you being serial right now? Yeah, that's how I don't believe it. The Bruins survived a great outing from CJ Cox, who Arvin of Locked On Boilermakers was saying off-ball defender, played well. Fletcher Lawyer didn't do much. You had Trey Kaufman-Renn, who had a rather quiet night outside of a last-minute put-back bucket. And I think the way it was called, physical, but not overly physical, not a lot of free throws, didn't punish UCLA, who basically played with 5.5 dudes all game long. Purdue had more bench, they had more options, a lot more depth, they were better, but the Bruins won the game. While being severely shorthanded, weary, traveling, super tired from the travel, everything still led to UCLA winning this game. A game changer in the Donovan Dent legacy game that over the next 2 months could change the trajectory of his short UCLA career. Could he go from legend, from the guy who we could point to as, oh, what's wrong with the NIL, to, man, there's a reason Mick Cronin targeted this dude as his senior leader. And he stepped up in their biggest game of the year thus far. I'm hyped to the nth degree. Now let's get some hype. Let's talk UCLA hoops every day. Man, I'm hyped. I am hyped. And they have a chance to go on a winning streak of legitimately 6 straight games. And is that possible? Is that likely? I'm not sure. Are they consistent enough to do it? Who knows? But it's the same type of year, same time of the year that last year the Bruins went from chumps to competitors. Out of the tournament to stacking up a resume and a winning streak that they were consistently winners and in the tournament by the time March rolled around. It wasn't a question last year. Same time, right on schedule. I'm not sure I'm ready for a John Rothstein tweet that says Mick Cronin more consistent than what some movie on a rainy Saturday, whatever it is, or Sunday. But man, just like last year, the Bruins can set themselves up for success. All right. So here the Bruins go. They're off, and I'm hyped.
That's all for today's Big 3 in 30 College. If you follow pro basketball or football, the Big 3 in 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and the NFL going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA or the Big 3 in 30 NFL, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning into the Big 3 in 30 College.